A powerful CEO destroys his own marriage for the sake of a mistress. Every night, his cruelty breaks his wife's heart, but when she finally stops crying, stops begging, and stops loving him, the man who thought he had everything suddenly realizes he has lost the one thing money can't buy. Elena had always believed that love could heal even the deepest wounds. When she married Adrian Carter, the man every woman dreamed of, she thought her life had finally become the fairy tale she had longed for. Adrian was a powerful CEO, a man with a presence that commanded entire boardrooms and bent the world to his will. To everyone else, he was a figure of perfection, handsome, intelligent, wealthy, and untouchable. But to Elena, he had once been something much simpler, her husband, the man she loved more than anything. The first year of their marriage was golden. Adrian, though strict and disciplined, had moments of tenderness that melted her heart. They traveled, laughed, and built memories together. Elena believed in every vow they had exchanged under the arch of white roses. She believed that no matter how busy his empire kept him, his heart would always remain with her. But she was wrong. Slowly, his love began to fade, replaced by a chilling distance that left her shivering in her own home. The cause of his coldness was no mystery. Vivian. Vivian was everything Elena wasn't. Bold, glamorous, fearless in her ambitions. Where Elena carried grace in simplicity, Vivian wielded beauty like a weapon. She became Adrian's shadow at business parties, whispered temptations in his ear, and slowly poisoned his heart against his own wife. To Adrian, she was an escape from the routine warmth of Elena's love, an exciting flame he couldn't resist. And so the punishments began. Every night when Adrian returned home, Elena would wait at the dinner table with a smile, hoping, praying, that tonight would be different. But his eyes barely met hers. His voice carried no warmth. He criticized her cooking, mocked her silence, compared her to Vivian in ways that cut deeper than knives. "You should learn from Vivian," he would sneer one night, his words sharp enough to slice through her chest. "She knows how to carry herself in society. You're nothing but a shadow." Elena would lower her gaze, holding back the tears that burned her eyes. She loved him too much to fight back. She thought that if she endured his cruelty long enough, he would remember who she was, the woman who had once made him laugh, the woman who had once been his everything. But the punishments grew harsher. He stopped sharing a bed with her. He stopped acknowledging her as his wife in public. At home, his words were daggers, and his silences were heavier than any scream. Vivian's perfume often lingered on his suits, her lipstick sometimes smudged faintly on his collar. Elena noticed every detail, every sign of betrayal, yet she swallowed her pain because love had chained her heart. Nights became her torment. Alone in the vast mansion, Elena would wander the halls, staring at the cold marble walls that once echoed with laughter. She would stand by the window, clutching her chest as though she could hold her breaking heart together with her bare hands. But no matter how much she cried, Adrian never softened. If anything, her tears only fueled his cruelty. "You cry too much," he spat one evening, tossing his jacket aside. "Do you think your tears can make me love you again? Pathetic." That night, Elena stopped crying in front of him. Days turned into weeks, weeks into months. Elena's heart bled in silence, but slowly, something inside her began to change. Her love, once fiery and unshakable, began to dim. She no longer begged him to love her. She no longer reached for his hand when they walked together in public. She no longer waited by the dinner table with hope in her eyes. Her silence was no longer the silence of patience. It was the silence of surrender. Adrian noticed. At first, he thought it was a victory. Finally, he told himself, she knows her place. Finally, she has accepted reality. But deep inside, a faint unease gnawed at him. Her eyes no longer carried the softness that once melted him. Her voice no longer trembled with hurt when he insulted her. She was there, in his house, but her presence felt like a stranger's. One night, as he returned home from another evening with Vivian, he found Elena sitting by the fireplace. She wasn't crying, she wasn't waiting, she was simply staring into the flames, her face unreadable. For the first time in months, Adrian felt a strange chill crawl up his spine. "Elena," he said, expecting her to look up, to jump, to cling to him the way she used to. But she only glanced at him briefly, her expression calm, distant, almost cold. Then she turned back to the fire, as though he were nothing more than a passing shadow. That night, Adrian couldn't sleep. For the first time, he wondered if something he thought eternal, her love, was slipping away. Adrian Carter was a man who could buy anything, cars, companies, even people's loyalty. But as days passed, he discovered the one thing his wealth couldn't buy back, his wife's love. Alina's silence grew heavier with every passing day. She no longer protested when he stayed out late with Vivian. She no longer flinched when he threw harsh words at her. Instead, she moved through the mansion like a ghost, tending to the house, speaking politely when necessary, and retreating into her own quiet world. At first, Adrian tried to ignore the unease clawing at him. But one evening, at a lavish party thrown by one of his business partners, reality struck. Vivian clung to his arm, laughing loudly, her beauty dazzling under the chandelier. But when he glanced across the room and saw Elena, her face calm, her smile faint but distant, something inside him shattered. Other men noticed her. They admired her grace, her elegance, the quiet strength in her eyes. For the first time, Adrian realized he might not be the only one to see her worth. A sharp pang of jealousy pierced his chest, though he had no right to feel it. When they returned home, he confronted her. "Why were you smiling at them?" he demanded, his voice laced with frustration. Elena looked at him, her expression serene. "I was being polite, Adrian. Nothing more." The calmness in her tone enraged him. Once, she would have cried, begged him to believe her. Now, she didn't even care enough to argue. Adrian began to panic. Vivian's laughter suddenly grated on his nerves. Her beauty seemed shallow, her conversations empty. He realized she was a flame that burned bright but gave no warmth. She wanted his status, his power, not his soul. Elena, however, had once given him everything, her heart, her dreams, her devotion. And he had destroyed it. Desperate to win her back, Adrian tried everything. He brought her expensive gifts, jewelry, designer dresses, luxury cars. Elena accepted them with a polite smile, but her eyes never lit up the way they once did when he brought her flowers from the garden. He tried apologies. He even tried spending nights at home, hoping she would welcome him back into her arms. But Elena only nodded quietly, thanked him for his effort, and carried on as if nothing had changed. The truth was brutal. She no longer hated him, but she no longer loved him either. One night, Adrian finally broke. He entered her room, fell to his knees, and grabbed her hands. His voice trembled, something no one had ever heard from the great Adrian Carter. "Elena, please, don't leave me. I'll change, I swear. Just love me again." For a long moment, she stared at him. Then, with a softness that cut deeper than anger, she whispered, "Adrian, I gave you all my love. I begged, I cried, I endured everything because I believed in us. But love doesn't survive when it's crushed every night. You killed it, Adrian. And I can't bring it back." Her words shattered him more than any betrayal ever could. Days later, Elena packed her belongings. She didn't scream, didn't curse him, didn't demand anything. She simply walked out of the mansion, leaving behind the man who had once been her whole world. Adrian stood at the doorway, watching her car disappear into the horizon. For the first time in his life, he felt powerless. His empire, his wealth, his mistress, all of it meant nothing in that moment. He had lost the one person who truly loved him, and no amount of regret could change that. Vivian soon left too, realizing that Adrian's heart was no longer hers to manipulate. What remained was a cold mansion, echoing with silence, and a powerful man who discovered the greatest tragedy of his life. That sometimes, love does not end in fire and fury. Sometimes, it ends in silence, when the heart simply stops beating for the one who never valued it. Adrian Carter, the man who once punished his wife every night for another woman, was left alone, punished by his own heart. And Elena, she found peace, not in another man's arms, but in her own strength. For the first time, she was free.